Hello, Bitbusters, and welcome to my set review of Ultimate Chip 6 by Jeffrey Barden. In this video, I'm going to be going over each of the 60 levels within this set and explaining for each one whether I liked or disliked it and why. Just keep in mind, this is all my opinion, and it's perfectly fine if you disagree with anything I have to say, because after all, everyone's tastes are different. I think I'm just going to take a little time to go over the rating scale I'm going to use. It's a little non-standard. Instead of ranging from like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, this scale actually is going to range from -10 to +10. And instead of a level starting at like 5 or even starting at 10 and only going down if it has mistakes, in my rating scale, each level starts at 0 and then moves up or down depending on whether it does things to impress or irritate me. So a rating of 0 is average. It means that I didn't dislike playing the level, but it wasn't all that impressive either. Whereas a rating of 1 or higher means I like the level and I'd be happy to play it again. Of course, the magnitude of the number determines how much I liked it. And a rating of -1 or lower means that I disliked playing the level and would rather not play it again. Thankfully, there are very few of those in this set. And down below the um, rating graph, you can kind of see I've laid out, if I were to translate these ratings to CCLP voting ratings, which are on a 1 to 5 star scale, that would be about how they'd shake out. But because sometimes me personally liking a level and thinking that a level is good CCLP material aren't always the same thing, it's possible that the ratings might differ a little bit. Anyway, let's get started. First up, we had Welcome to the 21st Century, and I think that this was a pretty good warm-up level. Oh, by the way, the rating for this level is +2. It's in the top left corner, just in case you're wondering where it is. It's got some nice sort of curving paths aesthetic to it that helps it to stand out a bit, and it does have the capability to trap you if you're extremely careless, but obviously, I'm far too good a player to ever fall for those really obvious traps. I definitely didn't fall for them during my playthrough. Don't bother going back and checking. Anyway, let's move on to level 2. Quantum tunneling. This was another simple level, but it was a neat experience, just pushing the blocks through and having the ball pattern kind of collapse into a single wave. That was pretty cool how it worked out. And once again, an easy level, and I definitely didn't screw it up in a silly way. Just like the previous level, I didn't screw up in a silly way. Onward. Level 3. Okay, this was a really simple ice maze, but I liked it. It was scaled well, and the completely harmless walkers going round and around made for a neat aesthetic. Helped make it a bit more memorable. Level 4, Repetitive Repetition. This is my first 0 just because, while it does have some little shortcuts to sort of help it stand out a bit, it's still just not all that interesting overall. Level 5, Key Free. As far as key swappers go, this one is pretty loose and looks good, but is not super exciting to play. Still, it was kind of fun, and I will give it a +1 for that. Level 6, Sneaking in the Back Door. Okay, this was a pretty simple puzzle combined with teeth leading, but the fact that there was a puzzle element to it helps it stand out quite a bit, and it was scaled nicely and had good aesthetics, so I'll give it a good rating. Level 7, Tombery States. Okay, this level was really made by that awesome teleport Sokoman puzzle in the beginning. That did a lot with just a small amount of space and was definitely the best part of the level. But let's see. How about the rest of the level? Well, the second section with the gliders, that one was pretty good too. The final section though, I didn't enjoy that one too much. It was kind of tricky to time the fireball, but the beginning section really makes this level and gives it a very good rating. Level 8, Encased just in case. Okay, this was just a total optimization level. If you're just solving it casually, there's really not much here. Just walk around and pick up all the chips. And since I wasn't running through the set to optimize it, at least initially, it didn't stand out too much, but it wasn't obviously a bad experience either. Level 9, Tunnel Boring Machine. This level is actually anything but boring. It's kind of um, I think it's well balanced as far as difficulty goes. You have just enough dirt to work with where you've got lots of options, and the chips also give you options, but you really do need to be careful and make sure you have a plan for getting those bombs out of the middle. So I think it was pretty fun. Okay, level 10, Tesla Foil. Now this would be what I consider one of the defining levels of the set. It focuses on one concept, and it does it using just the right amount of, taking up just the right amount of space. Here it was interesting partial posts with blocks to help chip get through and also help that pink ball get through. And that was a neat experience to figure out. Now, I know there was that force floor trap in the middle, and I kind of complained about it, but I don't hate it that much because, you know what? The level was short enough that it wasn't a real chore to replay at all. Up next, red, brown, and red. This one, as far as cloners mazes go, this was pretty simple, almost as simple as it gets. But you know what? It was still enjoyable to play, so I'll give it a +2. Number 12, Primordial Ooze. Okay, this is a neat maze that sort of um, uses non-standard walls. You've got the force floors, which of course let you take shortcuts through most of it, and the water and blocks, which also let you take shortcuts, but just to make things different, you do have to use the blocks in a few places. Not too many, just a few. That kind of helps it stand out, and I do like how the sections are broken up into those four so you don't get tired of the same um, elements too much. Level 13, Transmission. Okay, this one was really neat. This paramecium directing puzzle had all the sections were well made, I think, and I really like the twist of, or I really like those block and water puzzles on the three cardinal directions other than the south. And it was kind of a neat twist having chips that you didn't actually have to collect. Just, give you a reward for being observant, noticing that they aren't necessary. Level 14, Interdependent Line. Okay, this one also had some neat bits, especially the interaction between the block, the force floor, the toggle button, and the teeth. That was a neat little sequence to figure out. And the key/teeth maze was also pretty good. 15, Crazy Box. Alright, as far as walkers levels go, this one was, I think, pretty well scaled. Once you get out into the chips, you've got a lot of room to run around, but there's still enough walkers to keep things dangerous. And the fact that you only need, I think, 200 out of 300 chips is really, really welcome because trying to snatch all the chips from these walkers would be just a terrible experience. I'm really happy that you have a lot of extras. Number 16, Arctic Antics. Okay, this was a fun maze, and I kind of liked how it had the focus on long vertical movement versus short horizontal movement. That kind of helped it stand out, made it memorable. And the blue wall shortcuts, which were completely optional, by the way, also helped make this level a bit more interesting. 17, Retroactive Invocation. This one was just alright. The key puzzles were pretty easy, and the ending was kind of just happened. But it was certainly not a bad experience. Number 18 was Tanks, and number 19 was Tanks but no tanks. And they're both pretty similar, so I'm going to give them similar ratings. They're kind of like a combination of navigation puzzles and Sokobands, and they're both kind of built with this sort of haphazard obstacle aesthetic, yet I know that the obstacles were actually placed very carefully to make for challenging puzzles. And they were challenging. They really made me stop and think for a while. And speaking of challenging, how about level 20? Special little snowflake. For all the times block sliding makes me nervous, you'd probably be surprised to see that I give this level a 9. But you know what? It was really good. Has a nice symmetrical design with a very non-obvious solution in both rule sets. And it really made me think and realize what was possible while playing this game. I'm just really pleased with how much it managed to do with a simple looking design. 21, Deflection Field. Okay, this level was, fairly simply built, but pretty enjoyable, I think, even if it was just dodging. Simply put, the amount of dirt spaces gives you a lot of choices when dealing with the balls. Like you can make them take longer paths, or you can keep safe areas in exchange for having to deal with shorter ball paths later on. Just gives you a lot of opportunities to strategize, and it takes up a little less than the whole map, which is definitely a good thing, I think. Number 22, The Sound of Silence. All right. Now, I'm definitely pleased that Jeffrey decided to tackle the um, moving versus still contrast type of level, but and this one I think is pretty fun, but I still think it could have been done a little better. This level relied a lot on just moving around and then things happening off screen, and then you can go back to a previous area, and I kind of wish there'd been more like direct puzzle solving rather than just doing things and hoping something changed. Even so, this is a pretty good execution of that concept, I think. Level 23, What Lies Beneath? Okay, this is a pretty simple maze, but the ability to push around the walls because they're blocks and having items hidden under the blocks helps it stand out a bit. 24, I Glide Amongst the Clouds. Okay, this is one where I'd say the starting and ending rooms weren't that good, but the top and bottom rooms were pretty good. All in all, it kind of balanced out to an okay level, in my opinion. Level 25, To the Dungeons. This was an alright variety level with some neat stuff. The glider directing puzzle in the center right was kind of awkwardly hard compared to the rest of the level, but at the same time, it did make me stop and think, and I kind of appreciate it for that. 26. Okay, Wish Upon a Distant Blob. This one was pretty fun. I definitely enjoyed sort of figuring out how everything in the outside worked and how it fit in with the rest of the level. Number 27, Uphill Battle. Okay, this was a nice Sokoban collection. It has some um, variety in the types of block puzzles that you face to keep things interesting. And the aesthetic, even though it's simple, it's kind of nice. Gives you a little feel of progression as you're moving up the mountain, or whatever it's supposed to be. Number 28, Demolitions Expert. All right, this was a time crunch level that you can't really see because they didn't put the timer on the map, but um, it made you have to really balance out carefully planning ahead versus just making sure you'd have enough time to get everything you needed, and that was pretty fun. It's sort of neat that the level has a carbon copy of it mirrored on the other half, but unfortunately, because of the low time limit, you won't really get a chance to explore it very much. Number 29, Congregate. Okay, this almost looks like a standard monster dodging level, but it has a little twist to it, which is that by the end, you actually have to start risking some of the monsters getting loose, particularly the teeth and the blob. And I like that it lets you strategize and save those for the end where they're going to be the least likely to cause trouble, because hopefully they'll exit the level before they interact with any of the other monsters. Number 30, Dissonance Amid the Storm. Okay, this was an interesting navigational puzzle, but at the same time kind of slightly annoying to move around the level in general. So it was just an okay experience, I'd say. 31. Blocks Aren't Us. Okay. This level had some neat puzzles, especially the left room and the bottom room. And the top room was a pretty good puzzle, even if I didn't really enjoy the two-tile block slide that much. The right room was just okay, but the other rooms help make it a pretty good level. Number 32, Autumnal Forest. All right, this was a nice sort of where do I go next process of elimination type of stage. I do think that just pure yellow doesn't scream autumn to me in terms of aesthetics, and it maybe could have been improved with a little splash of red locks here and there, but that's just my thinking, and it's not a huge problem. Level still plays pretty well. Number 33 was Betwixt in Between. Unfortunately, this is the first level that I have to say I didn't really enjoy playing. The problem was not how it was designed for the theme, but the theme itself. Like, I think if you want to make a level that's based around herding a single glider with a single block through awkwardly shaped um, passages, this was a pretty good way to do it. Unfortunately, I just didn't like the concept. It felt a little too much like work and not much like fun. Like, I wouldn't want to do this again. Level 34, Hyperspace Runway. Alright, this was a pretty simple take on the pushing blocks off a force floor concept that I've definitely seen many times, so didn't really stand out all that much, but it wasn't bad either. Level 35, Snow Worries. Okay, this had some more creative block slide puzzles, and I didn't really find them too frustrating. They were a little timing dependent compared to um, Special Little Snowflake from before, but overall it wasn't too bad. I still think, though, it would have been better if there weren't the two-tile ice slide at the end, because that risks death in Microsoft mode. Right as the very last block you have to push before the exit. Number 36, Center of Attention. Okay, this one had some nice little puzzle sections, especially both of the sections in the top half of the level. Number 37, Unlicensed Archeology. Alright, this was my second favorite level in this set. I just really enjoyed the second room, that navigational puzzle with the blocks, the dirt, and the toggle walls, as well as the ending room, which was a neat block puzzle. And the other rooms were pretty good too, even though the first room was really simple. I also liked the aesthetics. And I also liked the ability to shortcut through the teleport room using total posts. 38, It's a Small World. This was a very confusing level, but in a good way. Took me a while to figure out what was going on, but then, you know, felt pretty good to figure out. And 39, Christmas Armament. Jeffrey, definitely tell your family that they did a good job with this level. This level, a lot of the sections were pretty simple, but they were still fun, especially that starting section, the block puzzle in the center left, the bottom left, and even the bottom right and the center right. And 40, Obligatory Block Shuffling level. This was overall a really good Sokoban level. I was really impressed with the bottom section because, at least the way I found to solve it, there were a lot of block dependencies, and the way they um, worked together kind of made the bottom section act like a sardine can puzzle, even though there were none of the typical permanently or single-use press toggle buttons that you find in a typical sardine can puzzle. Onward to level 41, just another regular Thursday. This was an alright variety level, but it didn't really stand out all that much. 42, Choice Tools. This was an interesting sort of choose your own adventure maze because any combination of three items will allow you to get all the chips. And I also liked how at the beginning you had to go through a small portion of the maze without any tools. That was just a nice little change of pace for these sorts of levels. It was pretty simple, but still I can definitely appreciate the work that went into designing this. And next we have level 43, Fahrenheit Frenzy. This was my favorite level of the set. It's a time crunch level, but it's got a lot of interesting puzzles, and you really rewards you for paying close attention to the entire level, everything you can see. Like that section where you have to deflect the fireball down onto that toggle button way down there in the top right, that was brilliantly made and really satisfying to figure out. Overall, a really good level. 44, Celsius Scramble. This one had some good points, like a few good block sliding puzzles, but overall, I didn't really enjoy navigating it that much, and the ability to trap yourself by hitting the toggle button and then heading upwards um, on the force floors was really not appreciated. I definitely think that could have been designed a little better, especially because if the walls are in the wrong parity for going through the red for right after the red lock, you'd be enticed to use that button to change them, and then you find out you screwed yourself. Wasn't fun to do that. 45, Blue Narcissus. This had some nice monster directing puzzles that were started off tricky and actually got easier as the level went on, which I can appreciate. Um, I do think that the sort of block between the pink balls was needlessly awkward, and I don't know why that was at the end, but whatever. Wasn't a huge problem. 46, Synthetic Coral. These levels where you have to push a ton of blocks and get chips under them, they can be pretty nice. This one just had so many blocks that you're almost never in danger of failing unless you made a 2x2 square out of blocks. But and I think it maybe could have been slightly smaller, but it was still a nice break from the difficult puzzles I'd been solving. 47, Blast from the Past. This was a neat variety level. I really liked several of the sections, including the mind block type section in the just southeast of the start and the teleport puzzle all the way in the southwest. Number 48, Happy as a Clam. This one, I didn't like the beginning too much, but the rest was all good. I especially liked that partial posting puzzle using the teleport in the center left that takes you to the top right. That was pretty neat to figure out. And I almost wish it had required you to extract 2 blocks instead of just 1, because then I could have used my rule set specific solutions. But it's still alright as is. For 49, Confusion Cave. This level lived up to its name. But once again, I think it was in a good way. It wasn't even all that big. There was just a lot going on there in a small space. The block sites at the beginning were kind of precise, both in terms of timing and in the steps you needed to solve them. But because they were at the beginning, they weren't as annoying as they would have been if they were any later in the level. I think it was definitely the right decision to put them at the beginning. 50, Opal Shrine. This was a pretty simple variety level, relatively, considering its placement in the set, but the sort of 1 block Sokoban at the end really was a neat touch and helped it stand out a lot. I think that the ending with the fireballs could have been made a little less awkward. The fact that they have to either, cross paths or you have to pull off a quick maneuver right at the end. It's not that difficult, but at the same time, it's easy to mess up, and that's what happened to me. Kind of soured the experience just a little. But the rest of the level was still good, so I still had a lot of fun with it. 51. This was Despotism, and, well, it was pretty interesting. Just sort of guiding the fireball throughout the level and having to sort of predict how things would work. But I think the level did a good job of making it clear what I had to do without spelling out how every single button worked. 52, Outlast. Now this was a neat mechanic. It's sort of like a forbidden zone that you can only stay in for a very short time, or else the teeth will get stuck in there and cook the level. And the beginning room was a really neat puzzle. Second room wasn't quite as good of a puzzle, but it was still pretty cool to get to go back and forth in and out of the zones quickly. And it was thankfully pretty loose with the blocks. You had a lot of choices for how to blow up the bombs and you didn't even need all the blocks. I think this level was sized very well for the concept because does demand precise movement and could get tiring if it went on too long, but for just these 2 rooms, it was good. Oh yeah, and the secret hint on the outside was kind of a neat touch. 53, Immersion Circulator. Okay, this was a challenging and very good campaign level. And I really liked both of the puzzles that involved blocks and teleports. I remember when I said that about Tombery States? Well, it's true here too. Those were neat puzzles. I do think that the level could use a bit more time. Even if it makes a number theory reference, I just don't think anyone can really be expected to beat this in one shot unless they make a mistake partway through and have to restart. They're going to run out of time otherwise. 54, Navigating Neptune. Okay, this was a nice blue wall maze. It was scaled to sort of a medium size, which I think was good, and the um, small puzzles in the corners and the fact that they unlock shortcuts in the maze once you solve them, that was a really neat touch. I definitely appreciated those. 55, Lebanon. This level was kind of confusing at the start, but then once I figured out how to get through the first half, the second half wasn't too bad. It was really a level that made you think very carefully about how to use everything available to you at the start. And while the ability to ram the blocks and cook the level that way when trying to extract them was kind of annoying, I'm not sure it could have been helped. And it was pretty early on, and thankfully I got it within only a few tries, so it wasn't too big of a problem. The block maze around the outside with the monsters, now that was really cool. Figuring out which of the blocks could be extracted and where they needed to go, that really helped set this level apart. Number 56, Monotone. This level certainly existed. It certainly did that. As far as invisible wall mazes go, well, it was pretty standard, I'd think. The fact that the chips kind of tell you where you can't go helps a bit, but even so, it just takes a lot of oofing to get through the maze. And the kind of checkerboard design of the wall means that whenever you run into one wall, you'll usually run into another one or two walls as you try to figure out which way to go next. It's oftentimes the only way to go is back the way you came. So it wasn't the fastest to get around, but it wasn't awful either. And since it was untimed, there was no risk at all of dying. That was good. 57, Mystery Caves. Okay, this level was sweet. Like the starting puzzle, pretty good, not too bad. Um, the teeth and ballroom, not so great, but the block sliding puzzle, where you had to extract those blocks from the ice, that was really well made. The solution was not obvious at all, and yet worked out really nicely once I figured out what to do. The rest of the levels, all right. Though I think that the bug and paramecium room could have been improved if the bombs were somehow visible from the start, because without that, I didn't really know what to do the first time going in, and so I ended up making things way too hard for myself and dying. And then it was only once I saw the bombs that I realized I could just stick to the outside and not disrupt the paramecia. 58, Flight of the Prince. I'm sorry to say, but this was my least favorite level in this set. For one thing, I thought it was going to be a time crunch level, but it turned out it was even stricter than a time crunch level. It was a total optimization level where you had to get the perfect time or you just die. The problem with that was that the level's design didn't make that clear at all. I thought there were puzzle elements to it because there were so many side paths. And every single time I found one, I'd go down it only to realize that it led absolutely nowhere, and I just wasted my time trying to solve a puzzle that isn't there. And the puzzle is literally just follow the glider, lose exactly one move, and don't make a single mistake after that. Because once you get to the halfway point or so, or maybe like the two-thirds point, another glider will suddenly come out of nowhere and chase you. And if you missed even a single move, it will hit you. Or you'll just get behind it and not be released from the trap. And then even after that, you have to be perfect because otherwise you won't make it to the exit in time. I don't know. I just feel like that concept could have been better communicated. Otherwise, it just made for a lot of frustration because it wasn't clear. But on the other hand, level 59, this was one of my favorites in the set. The party we have never seen. This was a really impressively made cloner's maze type level. It sort of mixes the central room where you have a lot of leeway of how to do things because you have a block cloner available to you, and some of the rooms on the outside, like the top left room and the bottom center room, where you have very limited numbers of blocks, and so you have to use them smartly to get rid of the bombs. And that twist ending, that that got me, but that was genius. It's really a case of using every single thing that's available to you to solve what looks to be impossible. and I applaud you for making that. That was very well put together. And finally, level 60, a chip down memory lane. This had some nice callbacks to um, levels from the original Chips Challenge, and I think it was pretty fun, even though it was much simpler than the previous levels, but that's nice, a sort of relaxing victory lap for the end of the game. And that concludes the review of Ultimate Chip 6. Overall, this was a very fun set. I think it was perhaps the best custom set I've played, and it had just consistently good quality levels that were enjoyable to solve. It had some really well-crafted puzzles, a lot where you really had to think carefully, use everything available to yourself, solutions hidden in plain sight, and really some that made me even try things I didn't even know were possible. I think that most of the levels were very well scaled and it had some really nice campaign levels down the home stretch that were challenging but not absurd. And overall, I think the set as a whole was scaled well too, just 60 levels. Most of them were just very good ideas, like I said again. Creative designs, well put together. And I had a lot of fun making this LP. It was also a lot of work though, so I'm not sure if I'm going to do another LP of a full custom set, at least not for a while. But I might do something smaller, like LPing small parts of other custom sets. Anyway, thank you very much, Jeffrey, for making these levels, and thank you very much to everyone who watched this.